And welcome back. Now, in his weekly letter, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced plans to increase Eskom's power supply capacity by using diverse sources such as gas, coal, wind and solar energy. Ramaphosa says that new energy will be procured through a transparent tendering process that prioritizes competitiveness as well as cost effectiveness. Now, government has gazetted ministerial determinations that will enable the development of more than 11,800 megawatts of additional power generation. The president also noted that government is working hard to restore Eskom's operational capabilities and is restructuring the power utility to generate and transmit electricity more efficiently. Chris Yelland, an energy expert and the managing director of EE Business Intelligence, joins us now. Chris, welcome and good to speak to you again.
Thank you, and good morning to you and your listeners.
So South Africa currently has about 30,000 megawatts of electricity available on the national grid each day. What will this additional 11,800 megawatts of power do for our electricity woes in South Africa, Chris?
Well, it accounts for some 30% of the current available generation capacity. So it's hoped that it's going to make a significant difference in the medium term to alleviating the electricity situation in South Africa. You have to bear in mind that over the next decade, a very significant number, about 10,000 megawatts of old coal-fired power is going to be decommissioned and taken off the grid. So this goes quite a long way in replacing that old coal-fired power. But it's not enough. And there is a three sort of phase approach to this. The first phase is self-generation. This can bring on several thousand megawatts in the short term if government relaxes the regulatory and bureaucratic processes that enable this. Secondly, there's the emergency procurement of 2,000 megawatts, which you know has gone out to tender through a bidding process. And finally, there's this latest ministerial determination, which is a very significant determination and will procure power that will come on stream perhaps in 3 to 4 years' time.
So there has, of course, been criticism about the timeframes and how long this will take, and that energy could be purchased short term while this is going on to ensure that the lights are kept on. But what's your view on this, the fact that there is criticism with regard to timeframes?
Well, of course, I think it's valid criticism because the procurement has been a long time coming. But it's starting to happen now, and that's important. And as I say, it's not good enough just to embark on this particular procurement round. There has to be a short-term, medium-term, and longer-term procurements. And this is part of the process, but it's not the only process. The emergency procurement, as well as self-generation by customers, is essential if we're going to avoid or at least mitigate load shedding in the next 2 to 3 years.
So, Chris, just to take a step back, perhaps, because it can all get very confusing very quickly with Eskom and everything that's going on. So there were, of course, the IPPs that then Minister Jeff Radebe signed off on. So where do they fit into this whole picture?
Well, look, they are starting, I guess, to come on stream. You have to remember that once you approve the procurement, there still has to be financial closure, and then construction has got to occur. And the time taken for financial closure and construction can be 3.5 years. So those projects that Minister Radebe signed are probably starting to come on stream at the moment. Of course, they're going to start to help. But as I say, a lot of power is coming off stream at the moment as a result of being old and unreliable. Eskom's energy availability factor has declined. That means there's less generation that is available for service because it's being contained or broken down. So it's really critical that we have a pipeline of new projects coming on stream every single year for the foreseeable future if we're going to alleviate this shortage that we currently face.
Correct, and especially given that Eskom has serious financial woes that are literally, an albatross around the entire country's economy, and the money that was spent on those 27 IPPs, surely that had a time frame. As you say, they are starting to come on onto the grid, but what were the time frames for that, and how many of them have come onto the grid as we speak?
Yeah, look, every single project is different. So it's not a simple matter of saying this is when they will be on stream. Every single project has to achieve financial closure with the financiers, the banks, independently and separately. Contracts need to be signed, construction needs to take place, and every project is different. But as I say, the timing is around about now. These projects are starting to come on stream, those 27 that were signed off by Minister Radebe at the time.
Because, and that's the point, because it cannot just be an open-ended issue, because, as you say, we need that those energy streams to come on to the grid as of every day, every year now, as you say, in order to try and help us alleviate these problems. But if you look at what is going on, the independent power producers, now, what the president was talking about amounts to, as you say, more than a third of our current energy capacity, and this will go out to tender. Now, do you think we're on the road to real reform, given what you've told us about the ministerial issues as well?
Yeah, look, there is the reform or the restructuring of Eskom is taking place in the background as we speak. It is a long time coming. It is a slow process. It should be faster. It needs to be faster, but it is happening. What you can see from these procurement processes is that none of this is being built by Eskom, and there's good reason for that. Eskom is literally not in a financial position to undertake these kind of large-scale projects. So it's all coming from independent power producers who've got the capacity, the appetite, and the access to finance in order to deliver on these projects. One thing that is going to be needed, of course, is government guarantees. And this is where the restructuring of Eskom becomes absolutely critical. Because right now, government does not have the room to provide significant government guarantees as it has in the past, because it's fiscally constrained. Now, you've got to understand that when you enter into a contract between an IPP and a purchaser of the power, that is Eskom, the banks will not be happy to lend money for these projects because the customer, that is Eskom, is essentially insolvent. So as a result of this, the banks require generally that there should be government guarantees or shareholder guarantees to guarantee that the off-taker, Eskom, is in a position to procure this electricity over the next 20 years. This at the moment presents a problem because government is reluctant to provide these guarantees. The way around this, of course, is to restructure Eskom so that Eskom is not actually the procurer of the electricity, but simply a facilitator that facilitates transactions between generators, that is IPPs, and end clients that are creditworthy. That means industry, business, domestic users, municipalities, etc. And this will then avoid the need for such government guarantees.
And as you say, this is, of course, a new path, but is Eskom not paying? Have they not paid something towards these IPPs?
Now, look, the Eskom itself doesn't pay anything towards the IPPs. The IPPs build this using their own financial resources and borrowings from finance from banks, and they recover their money through the tariff. Eskom is used as a vehicle to pass through the costs that are billed by the IPPs, to pass these through to the customer in the tariff. And in this, NERSA plays the role of ensuring that all money billed by the IPPs is recovered through a tariff. So Eskom is simply used as a vehicle. It doesn't actually cost Eskom anything to be this transactor. It is a middleman, and that actually is the problem at the moment, is that the middleman is insolvent, which really means that generators from like IPPs would much rather be dealing direct with the end customer rather than an insolvent middleman. And because it's insolvent, the banks require government guarantees, which the government, as I say, is reluctant to provide at this point in time.
So when Eskom spoke about, a keenness to actually renegotiate PPA contracts with the IPPs, what was that about? Or why were they keen to do that?
The renegotiation of the tariffs that are paid by the IPPs for electricity delivered into the grid will not help Eskom financially. It will help the customer, and it will help the economy by lowering the price of electricity. But it doesn't help Eskom's bottom line in any way if the IPPs change the tariff, because whatever the IPPs charge are passed through to the customer, so the benefit goes to the customer and not to Eskom. NERSA will not allow Eskom to benefit from a reduction in the IPP tariffs. It actually would be illegal.
Because, quoting Andre de Ruyter, he said that the renegotiation of IPP contracts had emerged following an analysis of those contracts, stating that he believed that there are opportunities to engage with the IPPs with a view to reducing the net costs of South African electricity to the consumer. Further went on to say, and I quote, "I think that there is an opportunity for us to request IPPs to look at potential refinancing. We think that some of the financing arrangements are potentially suboptimal and that there are opportunities to lower the financial costs and thereby also reduce the costs by Eskom to those IPPs," unquote. So clearly, the cost factor is one that has everybody concerned. Again, the president also spoke about plans to include the procurement of renewable electricity and the provision, for this. But are we getting, the best prices out of these IPPs right now?
We got the best prices in a competitive bidding process at that time, which was now more than 5 years ago. In fact, probably around about 7 years ago when the bidding process occurred. If we went out for a competitive bidding process now, we would certainly get the best prices available today. But of course, as time goes by, costs of technology changes. The cost of renewable energy has come down dramatically in the last 10 years. So no, there's absolutely no doubt that if we go out to a competitive bidding process today, the prices will be significantly lower than they were 7 or 8 years ago when the previous bidding rounds took place. But you have to understand that the construction took place many years ago at prices on those dates. But what the CEO of Eskom is talking about is the refinancing of these deals, and in this way to bring down the price of electricity by reducing the price of the debt. Because in the interim, banks and lenders have learned how to manage the risks, and what they perceived as a risky project, let's say 7 years ago, requiring a premium return, today they would consider these risks manageable because they've gained some experience, and they could perhaps lower the cost of finance. And this lowering the cost of finance would in fact help lower the tariffs, and this will then assist the customer and the economy. But I must stress again, it doesn't help Eskom's bottom line or finances. It helps the economy and the customer.
But in the interest of the consumer, right now, Eskom is paying more than they should for electricity from IPPs. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say they're paying more than they should. They're paying the agreed contract price that was negotiated 7 or 8 years ago. And by refinancing this debt, there are indeed opportunities to lower the tariff and to pass that benefit through to the customer and the economy.
Which is not happening at the moment. So it would be in everybody's interest to renegotiate that.
Yes. Certainly, but I don't think one must get over-optimistic about how much the price will come down. Yes, there are opportunities to reduce the tariff through refinancing the debt, but you mustn't think that it's going to drop the price by 50%. It may certainly help and will be welcome to the economy and to customers, but it's not going to be a dramatic reduction in price. The dramatic reductions in price are going to come from going out to a new bidding process, which will take advantage of the current much lower prices of capital equipment for these renewable energy IPPs. That's where the real benefit comes in, is going out to a new bidding process using today's prices of technology and not those of 10 years ago.
And that's where we stuck. Thank you so much, Chris Yelland, energy expert and managing director of EE Business Intelligence, talking to us about government's plans to improve power capacity. Let's take a break.